So my video stopped because I had this low memory, low storage on my phone, but I'm gonna continue. So there was this all of this chaos just happening. I think at minimum there are these four political groups. The first one is the feminist, which are protecting women and children. The second is this trans right movement. The third one is the people who are kind of supporting the feminist, but they're actually conservative, and they might be fascist, right? They are more religious driven. They're more conservative and religious. They want to impose rules. I think they're a bit more authoritarian. They're a bit like this. If the trans right movement is authoritarian communist, this conservative group, the far the far right. So the trans right movement is the far left. It's authoritarian communism, and the far right is authoritarian fascism. And then you have the feminists, which are also in the left, but they're less authoritarian. They also support free speech, okay, but they're pro this kind of social regulations that favor women and marginalized people. But they want to be fair, right? They want to be realistic. They want to safeguard this kind of weak portion of society. The traditional portions of society, which are like women and children. And then finally, the last one, you have this libertarian right wing. So they're more pro free market, pro free speech. I think it's more traditionally seen as what is moral, because they're pro freedom. But they're not so naive, because they're still pro free market, which means that they want to rely on themselves and fight competitively, fairly in the market, right? So there are basically these four quadrants of political movements, this political chaos that are happening. And if you wonder, I'm kind of libertarian, democratic, and also pro free speech. And my morality is utilitarian, which means that I kind of think that if in libertarian society it's really hard to regulate, or even impossible to regulate, to put into law these kind of moral regulations, right? Because if you do that, it has the tendency to become dogmatic, and then when in the future this rule is kind of not relevant anymore, and it still applies to people, it becomes it becomes stupid. It becomes this kind of irrelevant law that is being written that people are just following for no reason. But how do you regulate things like if people steal your stuff? How do you get how do you ensure that kind of safety? So that's it seems to me that you still need some kind of regulation. But the way to make it relevant to me, I think, you should you should make it democratic. So people should vote on policies, on some things that they think are relevant in their current time, and they should do it regularly on things crime, like theft and murder and protection of the innocent, those who are not in consent, those who are not those who are not able to consent. So these are the people that kind of needs to be protected, but we don't know what kind of rule that would make sense for them. For example, abortion. How do you regulate that? Because one way or another, some people are not gonna be happy about it. So people must agree on this kind of democratic approach. And some people just have to sacrifice their wants and their desires. Well, what are the alternatives? The alternatives is the authoritarian movement. It's just not right. Authoritarian movement. Well, it depends on what you mean by right and wrong. If you mean right is that it is dysfunctional for society, and yeah, it's authoritarianism is kind of dysfunctional. But if you mean for your own self-interest, it is a perfect ideology. Authoritarianism. So maybe this problem will never ever be resolved. You know, society will always prefer this kind of democratic ideology, this libertarian stance. But there's always gonna be these kind of psychopaths that are popping up everywhere and start to want to hack people and try to create this new dogma and be authoritarian, be the leader of it. So it's kind of strange, you know. On some level, I think that this societal unity on libertarian democracy, it kind of resembles the Matrix, except that I think it is a good thing. But the Matrix is filled with NPCs. And I've been very against NPCs. So I'm kind of confused about this. So there's also, and The Matrix itself is a film made by this duo brothers back then, which then they transition as a female. So now they're Wachowski sisters. They're Wachowski sisters now, and they kind of ruin the the premise of the Matrix. Now they seem to join the Matrix. And the people who are the fanboys of this film, they're actually kind of creating these cults. They're they're assembling the Neo Trinity and Morpheus. Uh, Trio. So they become the real people, and the creator of the Matrix is kind of becoming the NPCs on one sense. Or if you think on the other sense, the Matrix, the NPCs, they're also not, maybe back then, back when transsexualism was still not popular, they are the liberated people because they were imprisoned in this matrix where they cannot be who they were. But right now, after they win, they become the new matrix. So I guess whoever the winner is, the matrix is whoever the winner is. And then the loser will create these sorts of ideology that go against the mainstream and try to compete and steal this kind of winning position, this winning power position. And you also, I forgot to mention this Andrew Tate. So he's becoming really popular now. I just become familiar with his name just a month ago. But right now he's coming back to Twitter after he was banned, and then Elon Musk bought Twitter, and then he was back, and now he is really popular. And also there's Matt Walsh, who created the documentary What is a Woman. I knew that that kind of question would eventually pop up because what is a woman? If transsexual is a woman, if a trans woman is a woman, then why do they need to transition? I have been asking these questions previously, and I had this delusion that I kind of created the momentum, but I probably not. That's just my narcissistic thought that I'm impacting these movements. But on one sense, yeah, I think we are kind of influencing one another. I was probably influenced by some other thoughts by some people. I influenced some people too. in Facebook, then they influence other people, then and so on. That's the kind of delusion that you tend to fall in, alright? Because there's this illusion that you are creating this influence, when in fact, maybe you're also being influenced by these ideas. So, Andrew Tate movement. She is being publicly misogynistic, although I don't know. I don't think he's completely wrong. He understands a lot about evolution. He understands a lot about the game theory. And he actually is a kickboxing champion, and he also played chess. So he's a real successful person, not merely a narcissistic person, because he actually becomes it, you know. Well, he's still narcissistic, but narcissism is usually marked with this kind of delusion, right? Of grandiose. But if you're actually accomplishing the things that you're blabbering about, is that really narcissism? I don't know. Maybe that's just psychopathy. Well, I kind of think that psychopathy shouldn't be included in DSM. I think anything in DSM or the psychiatric manual of mental disorders should only include conditions that are causing distress for the individual. But if the individual is not distressed, but they're causing this kind of, they're harming other people, then that should be considered crime instead. They are not really mental illness, they are actually crime, right? So the curious thing about Andrew Tate, I think on some level he is categorized in this same vein as Jordan Peterson, because they are somewhat endorsed by the incel community. But I think they have this really antagonistic views, but they understand the same thing. It's just they choose different paths. Jordan Peterson, he understands that about the alpha male and the leader, how the leader will be viewed by the citizens and things like that. The the connection between male and female. Andrew Tate also understands those things, but he chose to embrace all the bad archetypes within it. So, like the tyrant king, he chose to endorse that idea. He wants to become the tyrant king because he thinks that it proves his alphaness. Which I don't really know how to dispute, because, Well, if he's dominating society and people are intimidated by him, then surely he is the winner, right? I'm kind of confused by these people who are willingly following him. He, Andrew Tate, he openly kind of, he openly mocks people who are slave minded. Yet these people flock to him. Are these people NPCs? I don't know. Maybe they are. No. So how to predict what movement will come next? Oh yeah, there's also war in Ukraine and Russia and this revolution in Iran. Jordan Peterson kind of become the Muslim brother. He's still Christian, but he panders to the Muslim crowd. He's negotiating with Muslim crowd. They're kind of forming tribes. While Andrew Tate is becoming a Muslim. So right now in Iran there's this revolution, this protest against the tyrant government. Which the women are subjugated, they are victimized, they are forced to wear hijab, but many women don't want to be this kind of dictatorial regime. And many men are opposed to it too, because I don't think hijab is the only rule that is dictatorial. So this government is clearly the matrix here. So the matrix is whoever that is that is oppressing the people, who is powerful. Andrew Tate says he wants to be the hero for people, but I think he he is the archetype of a tyrant king. Yeah. Even if he said that, even he utters the stereotype of a hero, but he is becoming the ruler archetype. So that's kind of interesting. So who will win? I think the biggest movement right now in terms of human politics is Andrew Tate, this incel ideology, and also the feminist movement. So these are the two big opposing forces. The rest is just kind of side quests. Musk is trying to explore Mars, but they are still uncertain whether it will become a big thing or not, whether he will successfully doing so, because there's still a very, very little chance that the Earth is actually flat. No. Why? Why does he keep failing to go to Mars? Okay. While we had went to the moon in 90 in 1990, somewhere around it. Why can't we repeat that success? Correct. So these two big opposing forces, the feminist and anti-feminist, who will win? I think Andrew Tate and Islam might win for